Want to get into our press review now, and let's begin with the Standard newspaper. A prayer for baby Satrin is the headline in the Standard today. Baby with terrorist bullet in head lands in Nairobi. 12 neurosurgeons are expected to examine him. An operation only possible after 2 weeks. Say a prayer for him. That is, of course, what is being urged on other victims as well that were affected and injured in that attack on Sunday.
All right, that is on the front page. That story covered for you on the page 2 as well. This youngest terror victim arrives in Nairobi for treatment. Absolutely, yesterday we understand the neurosurgeons say that situation is quite delicate. It will take about 2 weeks for him to be observed and be given a pre-treatment before he goes under the knife.
Other stories you'll find in the Standard newspaper today. Terrorism, of course, that story is on the youngest terror victim arriving in Nairobi. Read more about that. And church leaders are demanding guns to protect faithfuls from attacks. It's not the first time you're hearing the leaders talk about wanting to be armed, and that security as well in churches should be improved. Details are on page 4 and 5 as well, through to page 6. And what the father of Osinya, the young boy who turns 1 in the next 2 months, is saying here that the only sin my wife committed was to go to church. That's what the husband is talking about, and the family's life in Mombasa. It has a detail of that, and you can read more about terrorism. That is center stage all the way from the front page to page 6 of the Standard newspaper this morning.
Okay, on the middle pages, NAT fights devolution of nursery teachers. Transition Authority warned union to keep off the ECD saga, but the Latin state issued a 60-day ultimatum. Matters devolution, and governors are off to a devolution conference much later in Kwale. And today, there's taking stock of the devolution, that from the civil society perspective.
And just to remind you, even as we're talking about that story on baby Osinya, and that has been heavily focused on in the Standard today, and across all the dailies actually on the front page, they're all covering the same. That pay bill number is 505601, in case you just want to contribute and be part of the support for the family. Indeed, they still need to cover the burial cost for the mother. We have heard from the government, the national government and the county government of Mombasa, that they will be taking care of the treatment of baby Osinya. But for the burial cost, the Standard Group has indeed in collaboration with Safaricom opened this platform for you to be able to contribute. So 505601 is the pay bill number. Likoni victims is what you fill in after that, and this will go to also help the other victims that were affected in this attack on Sunday. Others as well, other than baby Osinya, were injured in this attack and are undergoing treatment. So we will keep you posted on that pay bill number. 505601. Likoni victims is what you need to be able to make your contribution this morning, or whenever it is you get some time to do so.
Absolutely, we can check the Daily Nation. On the top page, 7 days to road crisis. Starting at the top story, Matatus have a week to install spy gadgets to monitor speed, get rid of coffins, furniture, and live animals from roof racks, and employ proper staff. Safety kit has to be imported, and local mechanics can't fit it. Claim owners demanding a full year to comply with new law. That's the top story. But the story of baby Satrin Osinya gets quite a coverage there also on the top. Boy shot in church rate, now at KNH for surgery.
And the Daily Nation also does continue to focus on the terror in church, and doctors all set to remove bullet from baby's head. The wife recalls last talk with her husband. So this story, of course, continuing to receive that prominence in coverage, and you can read more in the Daily Nation as well. And on crime on page 4, baby smashed to death on floor. So there's a family here that raises doubts on quality of investigations after police leave the suspect's shoes at scene. So when a close relative picked up baby Calvin Mbugua and placed him on his lap that fateful Monday morning, the child was quite happy and relaxed. And more details of what unfolded in this tragic incident of a boy of 4 months among 10 people who were killed in Nairobi over the last 2 days.
Absolutely. That's heart-rending and difficult stories covered for you about crime, and issues that have to do with, crime and insecurity and things like this covered for you there on page 4. Also on page 5, presidency governors on the spot of a devolution. The Transition Authority chairman says that the executive wants to get rid of devolution, and that's why they're getting rid of the Transition Authority, fighting for his job there, as it were. Read about that story. Ngilu plays down row with Swazuri. Cabinet Secretary Charles Ngilu said that there is no bad blood between her and a senior official in the ministry. Ngilu said that Constitution requires her office and that of the National Land Commission, chaired by Mohamed Swazuri, to cooperate.
Indeed, no bad blood. I wonder how many would believe that. Page 6, state failed election sex victims in quotes is also a story covered here. Rights chief says that compensating internally displaced persons yet leaving out post-poll rape victims is biased. So read about that story there. The watchdog has accused the government of discriminating against the survivors of sexual violence in the 2007-2008 post-election chaos. Also on that page, Law Council trashes claims against Boss. So the Council of Legal Education has come out in defense of its secretary and termed the abuse of office allegations against the chairman, Fred Ojambo, as malicious. Just one of the stories that is also inside the Daily Nation. And conservation is also continuing to make headlines in the Daily Nation. Wildlife Agency says poaching not a crisis. And perhaps today's investigative piece by Dennis Onsarigo will paint a different picture. Be sure to catch that at 8:30 p.m. tonight. So poachers have killed 18 rhinos and 51 elephants since the beginning of the year. And there has been a lot of focus, definitely, on this subject. Remember, we ran the Hands Off Our Elephants campaign at some point. So very interesting to see at this particular point that this is what the Wildlife Agency continues to maintain, that there is no problem in that particular sector.
All right. That's what the people says. Poaching, not poaching. KWS downplays slaughter of 18 rhinos and 51 elephants this year as not a national disaster. The push by the conservation has been that it should become a national disaster. They say, well, listen, it is not a national disaster per se. We are doing a great job. We're doing a good job. We have challenges, but not on those levels that you're talking about.
All right, and then back page of the Daily Nation, Ebola scare prompts tight airport checks, and health officials put on high alert after deadly virus pops up in Guinea. So passengers arriving from Guinea are being screened, I beg your pardon, for Ebola, and in Kenyan airports following an outbreak in the West African country. So that has become an issue of concern.
Absolutely.
To the Star now, and death penalty for corruption. Law proposes that becomes the punishment, James, that it becomes a death penalty
it should.
If you're found to be
it should.
a fraud.
It should, because when the corrupt officials and any money that is taken from the coffers of the treasury, it takes away something. It takes away from the women health, the children of this country. So yes, it should. That story covered for you on top story on the Star. Second story, MPs ask about Migingo survey. Yes, a Crimea situation in Kenya, the Migingo. It's an ongoing situation. I think we know how to get rid of this. Let's do a referendum in Migingo. and then we can sort this out.
Indeed, read about that on page 3. Churches ask Uhuru to snub the marriage bill. That saw quite some debate in the National Assembly. Of course, the male members of Parliament very passionately did support the proposals we saw there. The women have been criticized for not turning out in their numbers to take the perhaps opposing position. But then you have the churches coming out to say, Mr. President, don't sign this.
All right, and that story on the Star, leave the law to us MPs, tell clergy of a marriage bill. That on the people, anguish, rage over terrorized innocence on the people. And yes, covered for you on the KWS. Quite different stories covered you with the different angles for you on the dailies today.
Right, finally, the front page of the People. Anguish, of course, again, that story leading in today's People newspaper. Anguish, rage over terrorized innocence, and it's Baby Osinya as well on the front page. And leave the law to us MPs, tell clergy over the marriage bill, and also that poaching story, a big one in the People. And we're going to continue to remind you throughout the show, poachers and butchers, an investigative series that will air tonight on KTN by our Dennis on Sarigo. And of course, we are reminding you the account number and pay bill for Baby Osinya if you want to make a contribution, and this is to help in the funeral arrangements of Baby Osinya's mother, who was unfortunately killed in that Sunday attack, and those are the victims that were injured and undergoing treatment. The number is 505-601, and the words Likoni victims as well is what to key in, and this is to facilitate treatment of those undergoing treatment, to pay their bills in hospitals, and the burial cost for Osinya's mother. This, of course, one of the campaigns has been begun by the Standard Group to be able to collect money to facilitate the same.
Indeed.